Hello, my online learners. Let's start looking at the digestive system. Now, as we go through the digestive system, I'm working with a couple of different resources. So I've got the textbook, I've got the note sheet, and also a really good video from National Geographic. So when we first look at the digestive system, it looks pretty simple and we are quite familiar with most of the parts. So the food starts in your mouth. It is moistened with saliva from the salivary glands, and there's 3 sets of them. Then it goes into the pharynx, which is the throat when the nose and the mouth join. Then it goes down a muscular tube called the esophagus. Once it goes into through the diaphragm, the esophagus goes into the stomach. Then it goes into the small intestine where juices from the accessory organs, the liver and the pancreas, join it. Then it goes to the large intestine and then out the anus, which is the sphincter muscle at the end. So that seems very simple when we first approach it, but we're going to look at more detail in terms of what type of digestion occurs and in what location. So on the note sheet, to help summarize, I've listed all the parts, and as you extract information, put in the description and the function. You won't find a table like this, but to me, it's a very good summary table. If you like summary tables, I love summary tables. So this will break down the description as to where they are, and then what the function is and what's occurring in the spots. Okay, so we're going to look at the video, which I think is a great video. Please realize this video has animation. It has real video footage from a camera, and it also has some diagnostic tests such as x-rays, but they're all put together and they're overlapped, so sometimes you can't tell what's what. So let's have a look. This is a piece of a larger video, and it's a bit old.
And with her new teeth, she's on more solid foods. Digestion starts in the mouth. Teeth grind up the food. Then, special glands under the tongue pump out saliva to help break down and lubricate the food on its 12-hour, 13-foot journey through the gut.
Okay, here's an example, as I say, that has what looks like a barium x-ray over it, and then there's an animation over top of it because it doesn't go through that fast. But so far what we looked at is the food enters the mouth, and then it is broken down by the teeth and also saliva. And we will look at the functions of saliva later on.
The stomach into the corners of the small intestine before finally passing into the large intestine. Waves of contracting muscle keep the food moving, a process called peristalsis.
We will also look at peristalsis later, but just to briefly summarize now, peristalsis is a muscular movement that squeezes the food through the entire digestive system. We talk about it now in terms of just being in the esophagus, but it goes all the way through the digestive system. Your digestive system has 2 layers of muscle all the way through, and then in the stomach, it's got the 3rd layer of muscle. And this muscle helps to relax in the front and squeeze behind to help push the food through. Here you can see the peristalsis.
These contractions are so powerful, we can even eat upside down.
And then it goes into the stomach. Okay, you can see the musculature.
For the first time, a new camera shows a high-definition view of how food travels through our bodies and into our stomachs.
Okay, when we get to the stomach talks about having rugae, and rugae are these folds in it which allow it to expand. Your stomach can be from the size of your thumb to about 2 liters, which is a medium-sized milk jug. So it allows for it to expand. Also notice how shiny it is. And that shiny is a mucus layer that helps protect the stomach from its own digestion. Because when we get to the stomach, we're talking about protein being broken down, and muscle is protein. So to prevent the stomach from breaking itself down, there's two things. One of it, which is a protection by mucus. The other is the enzymes are released inactively, which we'll talk about later when we talk about enzymes.
Food enters the stomach through a hole at the top. The stomach is a bag of muscle that churns, squashes, and squeezes food into liquid. At the same time, acids break the food down. The stomach walls protect themselves with a lining of mucus. Without it, the acids could digest parts of the stomach itself, causing stomach ulcers. About an hour later, the stomach squeezes the broken down food out through a tiny hole called...
Okay, notice the change in the surface. So we go from something with wrinkles into the small intestine.
The food enters the small intestine, an 11-foot coil of tube where we absorb most of the nutrients.
Now, if you look on the sides of this, and if this isn't good resolution, you can watch it on your own. It looks like a fuzzy towel. This fuzzy towel, sort of like how a good fuzzy towel will help increase the ability to absorb water off your body after your shower. A fuzzy towel the fuzzy towel has large surface area. And just like the small intestine, there is large surface area because there's these folds and then folds on the folds called villi, which are like finger-like projection folds. And then there's something called microvilli, which is folds on the folded folds. And all of that is to increase surface area for absorption. See the fuzzy towel there?
The interior wall of the small intestine is lined with millions of microscopic projections called villi. These increase the surface area of the gut, making it easier to absorb nutrients.
Okay, now one thing I want you to notice here is this is definitely an animation. The small intestines don't sit in here like sausages. There's all this connective tissue which holds it together.
First, the pancreas pumps out a juice that neutralizes stomach acid. Then bile from the liver breaks down the fats into tiny droplets. Smaller droplets are easier for the intestine to absorb.
Okay, we talk about the juices, the digestive juices coming from the pancreas and the liver. Those will come and join at the duodenum, the first part of the intestine. And they will continue to break down the food substances into the component parts.
After an hour and a half, the small intestine has absorbed most of the nutrients from the food. It's time for what remains to move on. It enters the large intestine through this, the ileocecal sphincter, a valve that keeps our food from going back where it came from. What's left is a mix of waste food and dead cells from the walls of the gut.
Okay, this has really bad resolution because my bandwidth isn't good here today. But when you get to this part, you'll see we're now into the larger intestine and there's folds, but it's not as fuzzy. So this is a good way to describe how the structure helps the function of the organ.
The large intestine's main job is to extract water from it. Lots of bacteria live here too, but it isn't because of an infection. We actually need them. They produce enzymes that break down complex carbohydrates in our food. Carbohydrates we couldn't otherwise digest.
Good, and then there's that mention of the bacteria or the gut biome again, which is wonderful to look at. And you can finish this off again. Unfortunately, I've got some bad bandwidth here, so it's not showing clearly. Anyway, from that you can start your components here. So we've talked about the mouth, and in the mouth there is saliva. And the mouth also has teeth and tongue, and that helps to move it around and lubricate it. And that helps to, the next topic we're going to bring up is mechanical versus chemical digestion. When we look at mechanical digestion is big pieces of something, of the substance, broken down into smaller pieces of the same substance. So this is an example of chewing, if it's your teeth, or churning, if it's your stomach, or mushing, if it's your tongue. And another one, surprisingly, and we'll get to later, is bile, because bile does something called emulsify. And emulsify means makes smaller drops. So an emulsification just makes a smaller drops. It does not break it down. So that is mechanical digestion, because you are taking big substances and creating it into smaller substances of the same substance. Sorry, big pieces of the substance into smaller pieces of the same substance. Then when you look at chemical, you are going from big molecules to smaller molecules. And this involves of a different substance. And this usually involves enzymes. And we will look at the enzymes later. For an example here is carbohydrates will be broken down by an enzyme called amylase. And amylase will break it into monosaccharides such as glucose. Okay, so that is an example of chemical and mechanical digestion. Then we have absorption. When you're looking at absorption, it is being transferred into the body. And it's usually through the blood. So before that, it's just in your gut. It's like a tube inside a tube. And when you're eliminating it, it is basically pooped out. But it was never a part of your body. Okay. Good. So we'll stop it there for now because it's turning into a long video. And you can watch that video again because it's a great video. And then we will look at the different layers of the digestive tract and how the different layers, including the muscle layer, will help in peristalsis, and later on something called segmentation, which is a mixing. Okay, chat you later.